So you were, as you said, president of the Anti-Discrimination Board at the time that you took silk. Can you talk a little bit about those years? That was a whole area coming very much into the fore, and I believe you were instrumental in ensuring, if you like, that the rights of people with disabilities, for example, were brought to public attention much more so than they had been previously.
Well, it was a wonderful time. I really enjoyed it. Looking back on those 3 years, it was just tremendous work to be able to be privileged to do. And we started off, I took over from David Moore and Gerald Cripps, who had introduced reports on discrimination on the basis of sex, marital status. And then we had all of these other reports to get out. Physical handicap was the first one, and then we did intellectual disability, then age, then homosexuality, and political conviction, and then religious conviction. And apart from the last two, they all resulted in legislative change. It was a very exciting time, and I was very excited to be involved in it. And very lucky.
Well, luck is interesting that you say that, because you said a good time for legislative change, but there have been times, and there would be times, when no matter what you did, things might not change. So do you think that, I mean, luck might be a bit too nice a way of putting it, but did you feel all the same, nevertheless, that you were able to get a lot done that you might not have at perhaps another time in your career?
Yes, looking back in particular, the late 70s and early 80s was a time of real political change in New South Wales and Australia, and a lot of far-reaching legislation went through that significantly changed society, in my view, and which we accept today just with a shrug of the shoulders, as if, oh, well, that's interesting. So it was a great time of change, and a lot of it was due to Neville Wran and his deputy, Ferguson, in being able to get a lot of that through.
Would you describe Neville Wran as a conviction politician?
Yes, I would. Yeah, no, I think he was very good.
Do you think people like that are prepared to wear unpopularity and not to say, all right, then I'm going to bend just because it's not deemed popular at the moment? Or do you think there were other factors that led to him being able to push through this legislation as convincingly as he did?
Well, I think a lot of it was his own powers of persuasion, particularly within his own party. There was a very favourable media at the time that wanted change, so that helped. And it was the right thing at the right time, I guess.
So in those years, you were on the Anti-Discrimination Board for how long?
3 years. I did a 3-year term.
And then after that, you became a judge of the District Court in 1983?
I spent a couple of years at the bar after I left the Anti-Discrimination Board, and that was the time with Ted St John in Level 43 MLC, Edmund Barton Chambers, I think it was. And then I went to the District Court after that.
Before we talk about the District Court, were there any particular cases you did in that couple of years that you remember with any great affection, or for that matter you thought, oh, perhaps not my best moment?
Oh, well, there's probably plenty of those, but I won't mention them. Nothing comes to mind in particular in that time, but one thing I did do at the bar which I really enjoyed was the Royal Commission into Prisons before Justice Nagel, and that was an extraordinary inquiry. It started under John Maddison as Attorney General of the Liberal government, and then went through the change of government to Wran. And I appeared for a number of parties, including the New South Wales Council for Civil Liberties and the Penal Reform Group, and individuals. And we were able, I think, to provide quite a lot of evidence to the Royal Commission, which the Royal Commission took up and acted upon. So it was a great experience.
Are you talking in particular about the kind of powers that the prison officers had and questions that were raised about their powers?
Well, the Royal Commission came about because of lots of stories in the media about the bashings of prisoners, particularly at Grafton Jail and Bathurst Jail, but also it came out of disturbances at Bathurst Jail where the prisoners tried to burn down the jail and were partly successful in doing that. But we certainly had amongst the prison officers at that time some bad people, and I think that that's now a thing of the past. I don't think that much bashing goes on in jails anymore.
You don't think people have just become a bit cleverer about disguising their actions?
I don't know. We don't hear many allegations of bashing of prisoners nowadays, and there's every opportunity for information to get out. I think there's much better education of prison officers today than there was in those days, and I think that's helped. We had a lot of poorly educated English migrants come as prison officers, and some of them were just naturally just bashers. And they thought that was the way to enforce discipline around the jail. And I think that's a thing of the past. But John Nagel, the Royal Commissioner, did a wonderful job in that. And the counsel assisting David Hunt, QC, really got into it and did a very, very good job.
David Hunt was famous, of course, for his specialising in defamation cases.
Yes, it certainly was.
Did you work much with him?
After David, I used to do some on the Court of Appeal, where I was from 1997 until 2003. I used to hear some appeals from David in his defamation cases. But then after he retired, he came back as an acting judge of appeal, and we sat together on a number of occasions.
You never got tempted yourself into specialising in defamation? It was becoming pretty sexy stuff in those days.
No, I did a little bit, but not very much.
Just one last thing about prison officers. I was just going to ask a moment ago. You don't think, even though there is less in the way of accounts now about prison officers bashing prisoners, there might be conversely these days where prison officers look the other way. There's a case going on in Victoria at the moment.
No, I don't. I really don't know. I can't comment on that.
What I'm interested to know, I suppose, is because this then leads to interesting aspects with your work with the Land and Environment Court. There's an old saying that when you educate a devil, you don't get an angel, you get a clever devil. Did you ever find yourself reflecting on that during those years of your practice and then later on when you came to the Land and Environment Court?
I don't think so, no.
Not in any sense, whether it comes to punishing an errant company or anything like that?
Oh, I hope not. I hope that I always was objective about my decision-making, even in relation to fining companies for pollution.